So this is a very, very special episode of the Geekdom101 podcast because it's not a traditional episode. I released this episode on October 22nd, 2020 because Halloween was coming up and I wanted to do like a spooky type of podcast. But this episode is far and away beyond that and you will get creeped out. So this is my interview with Mr. Doc Marquis. Now, those of you who don't know who that is, Doc Marquis is a man who claims to be a former member of the Illuminati. That's right, the secret society one, the one that people think that rappers are in and things like that. It's not really about that when you look into it, but he tells some incredibly creepy stories that you will not believe. Whether or not you do believe it, I mean, it's up to you, but it's still such a riveting interview. It's an older interview, too, because this is a replay of a show that I put out back in 2011, 2012. So it really wasn't that long ago. Unfortunately, Mr. Marquis did pass away. It's unfortunate. I was actually pretty shocked that that happened to him, but it did. So he's no longer with us. But we still keep his memory intact because he really gave a lot of information about the Secret Society network and how things are. So if you're into conspiracies and Illuminati stuff, I bring this to you for Halloween. I'm letting you know now, though, the audio quality for this interview is not great at all. It was recorded back in 2012, 2011 with a telephone recorder. Obviously, this was before StreamYard, before Discord. Skype was around, but I didn't really use it back then. I don't remember even using it at all until like 2015. So, yes, Doc Marquis interview. Again, please excuse the audio quality. It's older, but the stuff he says it's timeless. It's very timeless. So let's get to the interview right now.
All right, everybody, joining us right now, a very, very special guest, one of the biggest we've ever had. He is a very well-known and very respected public speaker whom you may remember from the Prophecy Club, Omega Man Radio, and many other appearances. Mr. Doc Marquis, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Danny. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. And how are you?
Oh, busy. I'm in the middle of getting a new DVD released.
Yes, I believe you told me you were working on some new ones. Now, I would actually, if it's okay with you, I'd like to plug them to open the show instead of at the end. Some people do it at the end, but I want to do it to open the show. Your website is itsagodthingproduction777.com, and you have 8 DVDs on there from what I've seen. I'm going to go down the list real quick.
I have 10 now.
10.
I'll have the 11th out by the end of June, the beginning of July.
The ones I see here, you've got Arrival of the Antichrist, America's Occult Holiday, Frontman of the Illuminati, Magic, Mysticism, and Masonry, Protocols of Zion, and then you've got the Illuminati Fulfilling Bible Prophecy, and then you've got the 2-part plan for 2012 and beyond, and Aliens, Fallen Angels, and Antichrist. Did I miss 2?
Let's see. The Illuminati's plans for 2012 and beyond, that's 2 parts. That's 7 and 8. And the alien ones, that's 2 parts again. It's 9 and 10.
That's
the
right.
Thing is, there was so much information, I had to split it up, into 2 different parts so I could get it all in. Like the alien ones, 3 discs, 7 hours. The one on the Illuminati's plan for 2012 and beyond, 4 discs and more than 7.5 hours.
Yeah, definitely very comprehensive, sir. It's crazy. And the thing I always like, the thing I'm going to tell people before they start listening to this program is, and what I've noticed about you from the beginning, like the first thing I ever saw of you was the Prophecy Club clip. It was like a 2.5-hour presentation. What I like to tell people is this is kind of I would say the advanced course in conspiracy because the thing I like about you is that you really don't focus too much on specific things like the JFK assassination and the 9/11. You really just get into the real deep stuff. It's almost like you kind of have to graduate to really understand. Does that make sense? I mean, like you have to graduate. You know?
I see what you're saying, but if we go back to the DVD series, I'll take you as if you're going through a university course. I'll take you from the 101s up to the 808s.
Yes, sir. No, you do, and there's just so much information, and we'll try to cram as much as we can in here. Now, I've done 6 other shows on the Illuminati myself, and the first 3, I was still kind of learning, didn't really understand, didn't really make the connection too much. I was just kind of to be honest, I was regurgitating what I had read and seen. Now, I'm very proud of the last 3. But you, sir, you are saying you were in the Illuminati. You were in the group.
Yes, I came from a long family line that goes back to 1789. When I was in, at the time, through my family, I was a 7th generation Illuminati witch.
Now, I want to ask you about that because a lot of people, because it's very rare to find somebody who is in and actually made it out. I mean, you've got people like John Todd and a few others who have made it out and told their story. And the beautiful thing is, a lot of what they say does kind of match up. So you rarely see contradictions, and there's different, from what I've understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's different ways to get into the Illuminati. You can get in through the Masons, you can get in through Skull and Bones at Yale, you can be born into one of the families or whatever. We'll talk about the families later because you actually have an interesting opinion about that, and then the witchcraft families, but you were saying that let me understand. Your family was already in, and then you were just kind of born and kind of taught it, right?
Right. When I was born into this, it's like, as if you were being born into, a Baptist family or into a Catholic family or into a Jewish family. It's just the family's religion, so you don't think anything much about it. At least with the Illuminati, when you get older, that's when you really begin to start figuring out what you're really into.
There's something that's been bugging me lately, sir, about this whole thing. It's been going on now for about a year and a half. It seems like the word Illuminati has kind of become a joke in a way. Like, I don't know if it was their intention or if it's something, because they do control the media. I don't know what exactly the situation with this, but like on the internet, for example, you'll have people claim that certain singers like Jay-Z and these people are in the Illuminati, because they show the symbolism. Kanye has the Horus chain and things like that. It seems to me, though, and after this, I would definitely want to ask you about how you got in and everything, all that kind of stuff. But it seems to me like the Illuminati is sort of trying to. It's like they're trying to acknowledge they exist, but they're trying to make it so that it's so ludicrous that nobody believes it. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, and that's why a lot of occult crimes are so heinous as to make it people think these things just don't happen. It's sort of like, a reverse psychology thing, but so heinous. No one would ever expect this could possibly go on in America. But the sad fact is it goes on in America and most other nations throughout the world.
Yeah, I've told people things that I've learned about this, and they go white. Let me ask you about that then real quick. Are these people like Jay-Z, and are they actually, I'm assuming they're not in, I'm thinking they're either agents or they're just doing it for publicity. I don't think, because as far as I know, this is a very elite, closed circuit, very, very tight-knit group.
Yes, well, you see, if any of those groups, the rappers you're mentioning, if any of them were really in the Illuminati, they would never mention them by name. Never.
Well, that's the thing. They don't mention them by name, but they have they talk about selling their soul to the devil. They do the symbolism. They do the chain of Horus.
Anyone, it's funny. For the last 2-3 years, it's become fanciful for people, to make, that triangle symbol with their two hands and put it over their right eye or something, and it's supposed to represent the eye of the Illuminati. Well, I can tell you right now, if they're doing it like that, they're not in the Illuminati because that's incorrect.
Really? See that?
Yes.
I hope you realize that there's a lot of people right now who are listening. You're opening some eyes here because we've been. This is part of the deception, sir. We've been trained to think these things, and what you're saying is not what the quote unquote YouTubers say.
That's Hollywood. That's Hollywood. That's not the true symbolism for the Illuminati. Now, you've already watched, you said, parts of my first DVD, correct?
Yes, sir, and I've watched a few other presentations. Yes, sir.
And parts of, my second one, America's Occult Holidays?
Yes, sir, I watched that one.
So you can see that there are symbols and definitive patterns that will conclusively show you this has to be the Illuminati. Those are definitive. What these people are doing are not. It's like a fad. It's like, the mood rings, the pet rocks, things like that. What they're doing is a Hollywood fad. Give it about another 3 to 5 years, it'll be replaced by something else.
I've had to deal with a lot of skeptics, and I'm sure you have as well, and they always tell me, they say, well, how can you prove this and things like that? And my catchphrase, I guess my motto in life is, if there's too many coincidences, it ceases being a coincidence. That's the way I see it. And I tell everybody this, sir, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I'll tell them, I say, if you really do your research, and I'm not talking about like you, not even going as deep as you've gone, but if you just go to a certain level, there's no way you can deny it. It's almost like there's so many coincidences and so many connections. I mean, the roadmap of Washington, just that stuff, right? How can you sit there and say that's just a coincidence? It blows my mind.
Oh, by the way, let me give you
yes, sir.
A little bit of insight there. That section of Washington, D.C. you're referring to, have you ever seen a surveyor's map?
I've seen I'm not sure the surveyor's map, but I saw the one where it talks about the solstice, and I actually have a copy on my computer of Talisman of the United States, very rare book that talks about like the owl and all that stuff.
You see, a surveyor's map takes the whole of the land and breaks it up into squares and rectangles, and it'll say like Lot 128 or Lot 61, something like that. All of that section of Washington, D.C. you were just describing, if you look on a surveyor's map, it's Lot 666.
Really?
Yeah.
Learning something new every day. See, that's why you're on, sir. That takes it to a new level.
Washington Monument. You know the Washington Monument.
Yeah, the phallic symbol.
How tall is that?
I believe you actually said it was, I know there was 66, I think, was it feet or I don't remember. I know it's an occult number. I know that.
It's 555 feet above ground, 111 feet below ground.
That's it, yeah.
That's 666 feet exactly.
Now, isn't there a building in Washington also? I think it's like one of the houses of Masonry where you have to fill me in on this. My memory's hazy. I learned this.
You're talking about the House of the Temple. That's the one spot in the world where you can become initiated as a third degree Mason. It's exactly 13 cities blocks from the White House.
Is that the one where the sun goes up and you can see the sun rising in this kind of like this, like in this little block thing? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay. No, I thought I had seen there was like some kind of like sun, like hologram, like inside of it. I don't know. It was an old David Icke thing I saw years ago.
Okay, well, now that you said that name, let's go on.
Okay. No, I agree. I'm with you there. Trust me. Now, okay. I want to talk about, like, you being in the group. So you were raised into the witchcraft family, satanic family, and you just kind of thought it was just a normal thing, I guess. It just, like a Catholic family or a Mormon family, you just kind of just accepted it?
Well, of course. That's just the way it was.
So were you actually, like, practicing spells and sorcery and things like that?
And after I was dedicated at the age of 3, I was put into the outer court for the next 10 years of my life. Now, the outer court is best understood as the Illuminati's version of a seminary. This is where it taught all the rites, the rituals, spellcasting, alchemy, high magic, low magic, the 8 nights of human sacrifice, how to practice human sacrifice, gematria, astrology, name it, this is where you learn it. So by the time I was 13 years old, I was brought to my initiation ceremony. At the end of that ceremony, they put me before the altar, and the high priest motioned to have certain things put on that altar. The first thing that was put there was a book that was made out of lamb's hide. Now, that's known as the Book of the Dead. The second thing they put on the altar was a crow's feather. And the last thing they put on it was a silver knife, or what's called athame. The high priest picked up that athame, sliced my right arm open. I had to take that feather, dip it in my own blood, and sign my new occult name in the Book of the Dead. Once I did that, I was a fully initiated Illuminati witch or Druid priest.
Now, I remember you stating in the DVD that after that, they sent you and a few other people to military bases to infiltrate them. What was that? Wasn't it to create covens? Am I right on that?
Oh, it wasn't a few people. You see, what had happened, this would have been during the late 60s, early 70s. The Illuminati had been trying for years to get their own people into the armed forces under chaplain status. But no one back then was going to accept someone who said they were a witch. Now, of course, those people in the Illuminati trying to get in were not saying that they were Illuminati witches or Luciferian witches. No, they were saying that they were witches, that they were practicing, the pagan religion. But even though, that was a flower child, the hippie days, I'm sorry, the military still wasn't going to do it. Well, what happened, the Illuminati decided that they were going to infiltrate anyways, except they were just going to send their people in under non-chaplain status. So they came up with a 3-part plan in order to infiltrate the military, and it was absolutely brilliant. And the first part of that plan called for us that whatever military base we were assigned to, we were to set up a fully operative coven. The second part of that plan called for us to recruit key members of those bases into these covens. This way, whatever they had access to, we now had access. And the third part of that plan called for us to make sure that all major occult religions would receive federal recognition and status. Now, unfortunately, we were just too good at what we wanted to do, Danny. Mm-hmm. Because if someone wants to check this, go to the April 28th, 1978 edition of the Army Chaplain's Handbook on Religious Requirements, and you will find listed for the very first time in all of history, major occult religions are in that handbook now. We're talking about how they practice, when they practice, and holy days, their instruments, their burial rites, and all this. I mean, they have the exact same federal recognition and status as any other religion in America, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
Yeah, that was the whole purpose. Now, were you actively recruiting people of the armed forces to be in the group?
Of course, that's part of what I was sent in to do.
So, now, did you have to go through basic training and all that? I'm assuming you skipped all that stuff.
Nope. Nothing was skipped. I was supposed to go in as a regular soldier, except I went to, after basic training, an Army medical school. That was the American Academy of Health Sciences at Fort Sam Houston, Texas.
Okay, so go ahead, sorry.
And after I graduated from there, then I went on to my first duty station, which was Fort Lewis, Washington.
All right. I thought you were going to continue. There's something else to happen after that, or you were already in?
Well, of course I was in. I just finished basic training and went through med school.
Now, how long did that last? Just out of curiosity.
How long did what last?
When you were in the military doing this recruiting, like doing the
Oh, my goodness. I was in for 2 terms. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, the thing, okay, now, like in the modern era, like, the last 10 years or whatever, it's pretty safe to say that the Illuminati controls the federal government. I mean, that's kind of, conspiracy 101. Am I right on that?
Well, they don't have to believe me. Why don't we just listen to, John F. Kennedy and a bunch of other people? John F. Kennedy, 2 weeks before they assassinated him, stated that not only was he going to put us back on this silver and gold reserve, but he was going to tell us who was really running the government behind the scenes. Yeah,
and the infamous secret societies clip. Yeah, that's another big one right there. What I wanted to ask you, because there's a lot of Sir, I mean, like I said, I've been studying this since 2004, and a lot of people have talked about this, and a lot of people have different views and different opinions and different stories to tell. So I wanted to ask you, okay, you mentioned on the Arrival of the Antichrist DVD that, you basically, I suggest everybody listening to go check that DVD out for sure. You basically broke down, like, the story of how the Rothschilds got with Adam Weishaupt in 1776. Actually, it was before that, and then they started May 1st, and you broke that whole thing down. But throughout history, like, when did they actually infiltrate the federal government? Because there's...
You mean ours? Oh, that was easy. They started that during America's Revolution.
Now, there's talk that Christopher Columbus was in the Illuminati.
No way. The Illuminati wasn't even around at that time.
That I didn't think. I'm with you, sir. I'm trying to clear up the misconceptions. You know what I mean?
Columbus was 1492 when he came here. Supposedly, when he came to America. The Illuminati, they weren't officiated till May 1st, 1776, almost 300 years later.
Now, do you believe that, let me ask you this on a side note, do you believe that the Spaniards knew of the New World Book? Because that's one of the big ones, that they knew that America was here before Columbus, quote-unquote, discovered it?
The Vikings were here before anyone else.
Yeah. I just was wondering if...
If we're going to tell the truth of that, let's rewrite the history books and be honest about it.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's why you're here, to clear up the misconceptions. Because I've read through some of this stuff, and it seems like not just John F. Kennedy, but a few other presidents have fought against them. Lincoln being...
You mean like Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, I was just going to mention him, sir.
Because Abraham Lincoln wasn't assassinated because of his stand on slavery. No. Like John F. Kennedy, he was going to, and he did. He blocked the Federal Reserve System from ever setting foot into America. He stopped the Rothschilds from setting up a central banking system. And to paraphrase what he said, if we were to allow this, we would damn our own country.
Yeah, I remember reading that as well. He said he was fighting. I remember reading he was always fighting the bankers, quote unquote. And also, I remember reading that wasn't there a conflict between Teddy Roosevelt and the bankers?
Yes.
But they were. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. They weren't fully in control. Like, were they still trying to get control? Because it sounds like even though they had control, like the president.
No, in America, they did not gain any control until the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913, and then in 1933, when Roosevelt recalled all our gold and put us on greenbacks. That was, and how the Illuminati mocked that they now had control of America. They put those two great seals of their organization, the Illuminati, and put them on the back of a $1 bill. Everyone thinks those are the two seals of the United States of America. That's nonsense. And I can prove this. And, well, aside from what you've already seen on the DVD, obviously, two things people need to know about. Any law, amendment, ratification of amendment, executive order, anything of that nature, must bear both those seals for it to be law. That is the way it is in America. It has to bear both those seals. Now, I've been challenging people for 34 years, come up with any one of those type of documents that bear both those seals, and I'll keep my mouth shut. And the reason they've never been able to is because those seals are not the two seals of the United States of America. Those two seals you'll never find on any document. And another reason why you won't find it is because the eagle seal, the cast itself, well, that's been, made. The pyramid one doesn't exist.
Wow.
It's a lie. It doesn't exist. And again, I've challenged people. Prove me wrong on this. If I'm wrong, then there'd be a document that would bear both those seals. Now, you can find it with the eagle one. You can't find it with the eagle and the pyramid one because the pyramid one has nothing to do with the Americana. That's Egyptian. However, it has everything to do with the occult belief system of the Order of the Illuminati, and I know because I saw many documents in the Illuminati that did bear both those seals, but I've never seen one on an American document yet.
Now, what was the story that you said about how I believe you said it was Thomas Jefferson. There was a cloaked figure that gave him 2 seals. I remember.
There's 3 stories in which supposedly the 2 seals came about. One was that it was simply created through Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin. Now, they were the ones originally commissioned to make the seals, but they didn't have any luck doing it. You know, they came up with many ideas, but nothing definite. Then there was supposed to be another committee after that supposedly gave it another shot, and still they couldn't come up with it. But there was a story that I learned about when I was in the Illuminati on how the 2 seals were created. The story goes that one night, Thomas Jefferson, who was so frustrated that he could make no real progress on designing these 2 seals, decided to take a walk in his garden at his home in Monticello. Well, while he was walking through his garden, a cloaked, hooded figure in black robe and cloak, as I said, appeared out of nowhere and just passed to him a red satchel bag. Jefferson reached in and pulled out the 2 seals of the United States of America. He looked up, and the being was gone.
Which is creepy. Now, where did that story start? Is that something you were told just part of the higher knowledge?
That's what I was told in the Illuminati, yes.
Wow. And did they tell you who that was? Because, I mean, obviously it's one of their guys.
Well, I think it was a demon. And the reason I say that is when we look at the whole of the dollar bill, it is so brilliantly put together, it goes beyond what I think a normal human being is capable of doing.
You know, I've thought about that with a lot of this stuff, that it's almost the mathematical precision seems, I mean, I don't want to say that human beings aren't intelligent, because, you know, obviously we are, but some of it seems almost too perfect, you know what I mean? Like you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's beyond our own genius. It was just too well put together. It works too perfectly.
I mean, Lucifer proved in the garden that he's the most cunning. I mean, you can't take that away from the guy, but unfortunately not. Doesn't use the cunning for good, obviously. I'm going to put you on the spot, sir, because I have to ask this question, and it's a controversial one, but it must be asked because you were in, you know the truth, and you can answer this better than anybody. When you were, first of all, how high did you get in the Illuminati? Now, before you answer that, you said on the DVD that there were originally 13 levels, and then later on they changed their minds and made it only 6. And
they didn't change their mind. It was more efficient to bring it down to 6 because originally a number of the original 13 levels were made for the sake of bringing Masons into the organizations. But it was decided afterwards not to reveal most of the secrets to any Mason until they proved that they were worthy of such illumination.
Now, just a scenario, if I were to work my way through the Masons, obviously I'm never going to, but hypothetically speaking, if somebody were to, they go to the 33rd degree, and when they hit that, you know, then they would advance to the 6 levels, correct?
No.
Okay, that's not how it works.
There's 2 schools of Masonry. First, one is known as the Scottish Rite, which you can get to the 32nd degree. Scottish Rite is 33rd degree. The York Rite is known as, you can get to the 32nd degree. Now, what very few people know about is they're told that the 33rd degree of Masonry is symbolic, and that's all it is. Well, that's not the truth. You see, there is something more going on with the 33rd degree than most people realize. Once a candidate goes through his 33rd degree initiation, at the very end, he's going to be brought to a room. And once he's put into this room, he's going to see 2 thrones. On your left-hand side, he's going to see all the regalia of a king on that throne. On the right-hand side, he'll see the full regalia of a member of the clerisy or a priest.
Wow.
Now, there's going to be a person in that room, and he's going to say 1, and only one word to that person. The candidate will hear the word choose. Now, if the candidate chooses the regalia of a monarch, well, that other person in the room is going to give him his 33rd degree scroll, give him a shake, a handshake, pat him on the back, congratulations, that's it, you're out of there. But if he chooses the regalia of a monarch, he will be taken to another room where they will initiate him as a first-level Illuminati witch. Because at that point, he would have proven he has stepped on the true path of illumination, and that now he can become one of the Illuminati.
And if he doesn't, you would have never known.
Wait. And the reason because of that is because when he chooses the regalia of a priest, there's an old saying in the Illuminati that goes, let the kings be kings, let the priests be priests, let the bankers be bankers. In other words, let whoever wants to run the country run it, because everyone knows the priests run the kings, but the bankers run the priests.
That's going to open up a whole new can of worms, but I do want to get into that, though. I know where you're going with that. I definitely do, okay? And that's going to lead to a question I have for you here shortly, because the priests, the bankers, and it seems that they're all kind of, working together, and you just kind of proved that.
Well, as I said, it's a very old Illuminati saying, but that's how it works.
Now, when you were in, did you participate in any blood drinking or sacrifices or any of that, any rituals?
Yes.
And now, I've been under the impression that when you're in, you become very demonically possessed. You kind of crave blood, and then once you become born again, once Christ saves you from the darkness, all that, I guess, desire, or whatever you would call it, that thirst is gone?
It's removed, yes.
Great. No, I always wanted to confirm that with you. Now, did you or have you ever been to Bohemian Grove?
Oh, I knew all the Bohemian Grove. I knew all of it way back when. I never had any desire back then to go to it, because as far as I saw, it was just an Illuminati summer camp where, sometimes they'll hold a ritual, a ritual of human sacrifice. Sometimes they'll just do it as a symbolic act, like through the cremation of care ceremony.
That's the other. You know what? I want to ask you about that, because some people have said that it's all a symbolic act, and some people have said that there actually is Molech sacrifices there. You're telling me that no, they don't actually do the Molech?
They wouldn't be able to prove that unless they were in. No. Now, I can tell you for a fact, yes, I know that human sacrifices have gone on there. And it's not Moloch sacrifices. I don't know where these people come up with that terminology. But they're doing it in front of a 40-foot Illuminati owl. Okay, and that owl does not represent Moloch. No. Moloch, if we go to the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian empires, we'll find out was a giant, brazen, demonic-like creature, sometimes depicted with two horns, sometimes depicted with one horn. He would have two outstretched hands over a huge fire pit that was never allowed to die down. Now, there's a difference between that and a 40-foot owl, if you ask me.
You definitely. So, if the owl is not Molech, what is the symbolism of the owl? What god or deity is that?
The owl represents Lucifer. And the reason it does is because, you see, we go to the Holy Scriptures, we find out that Lucifer was, according to Isaiah in the book of Ezekiel, the wisest of all of God's creation. Now, as the occult, from those days, obviously spread from one culture to another, the whole of the occult world stayed the same, except for the names, depending on the language of the nation it went to. In this case, when it went to Greece, one of the most famous goddesses was Pallas Athena. The city of Athens was named after her, and the Acropolis was built in her honor. And Athena herself always had an owl as her totem symbol. Why? because Athena was also noted as the goddess of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it passed down, these ancient practices and legends to the order of the Illuminati. And if we translate the word Illuminati from the Latin, it means the wise ones or the bearers of light. Hence the wisdom, again, the wise ones. And that's why they chose the owl as their symbol, because the owl represented wisdom, and the owl's wisdom represented Lucifer's wisdom.
Wow, I mean that makes sense. The all-seeing eye, the eye of the owl has always been, that kind of that all-seeing thing, the whole vibe.
That's exactly the historicity, or how the whole thing follows one step of another. It's just, a countercultural thing. It just came down from one occult school to another.
So when you're in the Illuminati, you're aware that you're worshiping Lucifer, and from what I understand, the way they try to justify it is that they say that Lucifer is sort of like a victim, and that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that he was trying to enslave Adam and Eve, and that Lucifer was trying to...
No. Let me clear this up.
Yes, go ahead.
The Illuminati's teachings and their perspective, they believe that in the beginning, Lucifer was equal to all things with God. However, as the millenniums rolled by, it was God who became jealous of Lucifer's equality, so God threw Lucifer and his followers out of the heavens. Right now, the Illuminati are convinced that they're summoning up enough of the force to where at the Battle of Armageddon, they're going to kill God and the Holy Spirit and put Lucifer on the throne where they feel he rightfully belongs. And right now, Christ is chained to a huge boulder in hell because he betrayed the cause.
Well, that's crazy because the story...
No, wait.
Okay.
That's crazy from our perspective, but not from theirs. You got to remember, they see Lucifer as being the victim, and that they're trying to correct ancient wrongs.
But I mean, if the Holy Bible, which now they also read / study / the Holy Bible's their book. Am I right on that, or am I wrong on that?
The Bible is the Illuminati's book.
What I mean by that is they're basing the history of the universe, I suppose, on what was written in the Holy Bible. Am I correct on that, or am I wrong on that?
No, they base it on different texts and oral tradition.
Okay, so even though the Holy Scripture pretty much states that, that it's a lost cause, and that in the end, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh and Yeshua are going to end up winning this thing?
Jesus, not Yahweh, not Yeshua. His name is Jesus in the English.
Well, I mean, yeah.
If we try to get into the Messianic movement stuff, it detracts from worshiping Jesus. Because everyone in this movement is trying to get back to the law, the old feasts, instead of, understanding that the first covenant was put away when the second covenant, the covenant of grace, salvation through grace, was established.
No, absolutely. The traditions were, they're in the Old Testament, but Jesus came in, and no, I understand. Now, I was just kind of making the point that even though the Scripture states that they're going to lose, they just ignore it.
Well, you got to remember that's our perspective. I know we're right. I've lived on both sides of the spiritual coin for more than 50 some odd years. I understand that, but try explaining that to them.
I can imagine it'd be a lost cause.
That's what I'm trying to explain. I know a lot of people don't understand it, but you have to see it from their perspective. This way, at least you'll understand why they're doing what they're doing. They believe that Lucifer was wrong, a victim, and that they're trying to correct all these ancient wrongs and slights.
Yeah, But they, I mean, do they actually have their own book, or I'm assuming no?
Well, of course they do.
Oh, they do have their own book.
Not a Bible per se, not in the way you want to Christianize it, no.
Now, I remember reading or hearing once that there actually does exist There's only 3 copies in the world. Again, you have to fill me in if this is true or not. You like I said, sir, there's a lot of misconceptions, and I appreciate you clearing those up. I remember hearing that there's a book called the Necronomicon that's like Lucifer's spell book, and that there's 3 left in the world.
Wait, let me just start with this. The Necronomicon is an incredibly dangerous book, not because of what's in it, it's because of what's not in it. You see, the Necronomicon is made up of particular rituals that were never completed. And the problem is, you try to perform a ritual that's not completed, then you don't have an idea of the type of demonic forces you're going to summon. Therefore, you don't know the correct binding spells to control that demon with, let alone the banishing spells. So you're going to raise something that literally has carte blanche. And it's been attempted 3 times, and only 3 times. The last person who tried it in his maniacal, egocentric way was Aleister Crowley. When he tried to perform that particular occult ritual, his own son died during the ritual.
That was the very next thing I was going to ask you. Amen, because that was the very next thing I was going to ask you about Crowley. I'm assuming that they kind of made you study Crowley and just learn his philosophies?
No, Crowley was a joke.
Really? Wow. See, you're the first one I've spoken to that said that. So Crowley's not this great hero of them?
Are you kidding? As I said, he's a joke.
So the stories of...
Think of him as a wannabe, and that was about it.
Wow. So what about the stories of him, like, molesting children, things like that? And that's...
Well, anyone can do that. That doesn't require any type of great occult knowledge.
Well, I know, but it's just that it seems like, from what I've understood, he's seen as this, like, figure, but you're saying, no, he's not.
He was a very sick and twisted, perverted individual who, and God forgive me for putting to this, was no waste of space when he was finally taken off the earth.
Actually, I want to ask you about something he did later in his life in just a second. There was another question I asked you that we have to go back to. I forgot. How high up did you go? You said you were like in the 6 layers.
If I didn't get saved when I did, 2 weeks later, I would have been initiated as a 4th level witch.
What kind of... I'm trying to figure out how to word this. What kind of benefits, I guess, for lack of a better term, would you get by being that witch?
Well, at that point, especially when we consider my family's background, just about anything I wanted.
Okay. Did you have any altercations with any world leaders? Presidents, kings, queens, anything like that?
Hey, when you say altercations, are you talking about a bad altercation, or are you talking about have I met them in friendly terms?
I'm talking about have you done rituals with these people? That's kind of what I mean.
Oh, that was ages ago.
Okay. So that's kind of my next question. Because it seems to me like the presidents, like for example, President Barack Obama, he's the current president, obviously, and a lot of...
No, he's not. He's a usurper to the White House. He can't even prove his own citizenship.
So he's a puppet, for lack of a better term.
That's all he has been. You've only had 6 presidents in the United States of America that weren't in the Illuminati or that weren't controlled by the Illuminati, and that's it.
Now, we already mentioned Roosevelt, Lincoln, Kennedy. What are the other 3? Wait.
FDR was one of their biggest puppets.
No, I meant Teddy, because Teddy fought against the bankers, right?
Yeah, Teddy was one of the good guys, if you want to call him that.
Who were the other 3?
Hold on. Washington, John Adams, and Ronald Reagan.
So what?
It was Nancy that was in it.
Really? Nancy was in?
Oh, my goodness. Have you ever seen how many astrologers she brought to the White House? You're going to tell me that's the mark of a Christian lady?
No, I figured that, sir, but that's just...
Please, folks, that's a whole different story. I mean, even though... let's look at Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely innocent man, though, okay?
Okay.
But his wife was the first one, according to my teachings, that brought astrologers,
fortune tellers?
What are they called?
Like seers?
Seance people, mediums.
Mediums, yes.
Yeah, and other such questionable people to the White House.
So, okay. So,
let's not forget. Let's not forget Hillary.
You mean Hillary was in?
Hillary is in.
Is in, yeah. She, I mean, with all due respect, she looks like somebody who would be in. I'm sorry, it just she has that look. Okay, you know what I mean?
Well, it was her, Madeleine Albright, and Janet Reno, who at the same time wore a gold phoenix on their lapels. That's an ancient symbol found within the Illuminati, which means that they're members.
Now, what about Bill? Bill didn't know any better, I'm assuming.
Bill's a third-level Illuminati witch. Hillary's a fourth-leveler. The reason it got confusing at one point, people couldn't figure out who was running up the country, is simply because of this. When orders came down from the federal government, well, Bill was the commander-in-chief, so Hillary had to do what he was saying. However, if orders were coming down from the Illuminati, she's a fourth leveler, he's a fourth level, he's a third. He had to do what she said.
Yeah, I kind of, again, it's something that I kind of figured just from sensing it, like, get that sixth sense. You're like, I think she's really in charge, you know what I mean? So it's just...
Only when it came down to her side of the coin. When it came to his, he was the boss.
And that kind of brings me to my next point. For example, Barack Obama, George Bush, these people, they get accused of being in the Illuminati by these conspiracy theorists, but they're actually not. Even though Bush was in the Skull and Bones, they just didn't make it to that high rank from what you're saying. No,
they did. Their family is the Bushes, like the Astors, the DuPonts, the Kennedys, the Rockefellers. Those are considered the young bloods. They're not the old bloods. They're only their family's only been in for about 100 years, maybe a little bit more or less.
Now, you are one of the few, in fact, you're the only one I've ever heard of, the only researcher in the occult that has said that, even though you're beyond a researcher, but you get my point, that has said that there are not 13 families,
Oh my, that is, I swear one of these days I'm going to scream.
I know.
A ludicrous book that was printed back in the 90s, I think it was the early 90s, in which the author purported that these are the top 13 Illuminati bloodlines. That, I'll tell you right now, that book isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Half those names are incorrect. I was doing a big conference in the Dallas-Fort Worth area during that time. Mm-hmm. And after my presentation, it was about 40, 50 people who followed me outside of the room because they wanted to continue. Well, we found a corner of the hotel with a nice round table. We sat down, and we just started going on. Well, this individual, who I shall not name his name, but literally pushed himself through everyone, opened up the book, and literally shoved it under my nose and said, "What do you think?"
Wait, does his name start with an F?
Yeah, I'm not going to say a thing, but we know who it is.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Anyway,
okay.
The first thing I wanted to say was, what do I think? You're the rudest person I've ever met, but I didn't. I opened up the book, looked at those 13 names, closed it, handed it back to him. I said, only half of them are right. And he started throwing a hissy fit and all this. I told him, you can leave now.
Why has this information been falsely reported?
Because people don't know the truth. The problem is information is a two-way street. Either people are going to accept it or they're going to reject it. Now, there are going to be those people, they're going to, tickle your ears and make you feel good. But that doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth. But, however, people are very susceptible at that point.
I'll be honest, sir. from the beginning I've been very skeptical of the 13th family theory because it seems like...
Wait, hold on one second, Dan. Let me just add one more thing to that.
Sure.
Now, let's think about this for a second. Let's just apply some common sense, some reason here.
That's kind of what I was going to.
I mean, can you or anyone with reasonable amount of intelligence honestly think that a machinery as big and well-oiled as the Illuminati can be run and created just by 13 families?
Not just that, you'd figure there'd be a lot more squealers, you know what I'm saying, than if it was that many people.
And, I can't believe that, this is what they're trying to tell us to believe. Excuse me, I saw how this machine worked, and it's not 13 bloodlines.
I'm with you there, sir. I mean, trust me, I was very skeptical of that, how the interbreeding, and we'll talk about that later, but no, I'm with you. It just seems like a lot of, I guess, modern conspiracy media kind of leans toward that, so I can definitely understand why you want to pull your hair out.
Yeah, but no, it's not because of 13 bloodlines, trust me.
So, take us through sort of the commanding chain of, maybe not every, obviously we don't have time to get into every single member. I'm not going to even ask you to start that one, but look, so correct me if I'm wrong on this one. I keep saying that because I want you to really kind of fill me in and our listeners. The Illuminati gives an order to the Bilderbergs, and then the Bilderbergs give the order to the president?
Wait. No.
Okay. How does it work?
First of all, the head of the order of the Illuminati will always be the eldest son of the Rothschild family.
Okay, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you soon. Okay, great.
The Rothschilds assumed complete authority, as the head of the Illuminati after the Bolshevik Revolution. But when we're talking about, when you said the Bilderbergers, we have to understand, the Illuminati created 6 front organizations to keep their plans for the creation of a new world order perpetuated.
Is that why the trilaterals and all that?
Now, after World War I, the world became a much smaller place with the advent of airplanes and better means of transportation. One of the first front organizations they created was the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Now, that's located in Chatham House in London. Now, after that came the sister organization of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, and that would be the American version called the Council on Foreign Relations.
Yes.
Right. Now, after them came the United Nations. Then, of course, we ended up with the Bilderbergers, the Club of Rome, and the Trilateral Commission. These 6 organizations are global, they're internationalist, they're all interconnected, and their topics, though varied to some people, are actually all the same topics that's discussed among their members. And their members usually are a member in one or two of the other ones also.
But, for example, the president isn't invited to these meetings, right? This is above him.
No, the president will be invited to them on occasion, but that's rare.
But so these presidents know that they're being controlled, essentially.
Well,
they're like actors.
Well, let's put it to you this way: those who know what's best when they're trying to become the president, they know exactly what they're going to be facing when they, assume the presidency. There's no doubt about it. They know what's going to happen.
They get a briefing, right?
They're going to get more than a briefing. They're going to be invited to very quiet meetings before they become the president.
So what you're saying, sir, is that the vote doesn't count, for lack of a right?
The vote never counted. That's the illusion. You see, we don't vote in America by the majority of the votes. No, that's done through the Electoral College.
And yet so many people fall for it.
Many presidents had been predetermined even before they started running. You mentioned the Bohemian Grove. Well, Richard Nixon decided he was going to run for president, but what he didn't know at the same time, so was Ronald Reagan back then.
And there's that picture online of them together at the Bohemian.
Well, what's interesting is Ronald Reagan took Richard Nixon. They decided to go for a walk, and once they got far away enough from everyone, they're in the woods. They just sat down on a bench, and Ronald Reagan turned to Nixon and said, "I'm not going to run against a fellow boho." Now, a boho is the Bohemian Grove for a member of the Bohemian Grove.
The club,
he said,
yeah.
"I'm not going to run up against a fellow boho. You run for the presidency, I'll step out." And that's basically how it was decided who was going to be chosen to run.
Yeah, and they both won separately, of course.
Eisenhower was another one that was decided at the Bohemian Grove. At the famous Lakeside talks, Eisenhower was asked to give the summer talk, and it was impromptu. He didn't have any notes or anything. And at that point, he wasn't that well known to most of the people in the Bohemian Grove, but they were nevertheless very impressed by his impromptu presentation, and that it was short and to the point. Now, for some, they were really hesitant about it because, again, he was unknown, but it really made an impression upon those members about the way he did the speech and everything. And that's how and when and why they decided there, before the summer was over, that they would put the full backing behind Eisenhower.
And, wow, I never have ever heard that story.
Oh, trust me, could I tell you stories.
Story time with Mr. Marquis. Right.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be story time with Mr. Rogers, not on my topic.
No, definitely not. Right.
No.
He wouldn't, no. Now, okay, so you've established Lucifer's at the very top, then on Earth, human-wise, the Rothschilds are the top family / they are the ruling body of the Illuminati.
Now, people in the Illuminati refer to them as the Holy Family, the Royal Tribunal, the Holy Ones. They are considered to be literal gods upon the face of the earth. And no one would ever say no to them for any reason under the sun.
And they control all the money, pretty much.
Oh, please. It was in 1838, Maya Angelou Rothschild said, "Allow me to issue and control the money of a nation, and I care not who writes its laws."
Are they fallen angels or just demonically possessed humans?
B.
Okay. All right. And then the Rockefellers. They're in there, but they're not as high as the Rothschilds.
No, as it says, they're the new blood.
Oh, they are?
They've only been in for, about 100 years now, give or take. They're considered the new bloods.
Like, like the Bushes, too. I guess they're new blood, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about the British royal family? Some think that they're in charge. Like, how are they involved in this thing, the Queen and all of them?
They're not in charge. Okay, let's get that one off the table. No, they're not. We have to understand. The monarchs of Europe, as far as hereditary rights and things like that, all came from the Judaic practice of kings and queens. This is where you get the British lines and others as far as the practice of, monarchs and everything, except the big difference is it was supposed to originally, and it was originally under what's known as a theocracy, a rulership under God. Except the Jewish people were complaining at one point, we want to just be like all the other people, all the other nations. So they tried out to have a king just like all the other people. And that's what really messed it up. They chose human rulership as opposed to divine rulership. So you can see what a mess that was going to be.
Oh, yeah.
And all the rites and rituals you'll find in the crowning of a king or queen of England is still done according to the ancient practices you'll find in the Holy Scriptures. But are they involved? You got to believe it. They really the control over the House of Windsor really started happening as far as the final pieces of it was with King Edward VIII. You see, Edward VIII, if you recall, he was the king that abdicated the throne so he could marry the twice-divorced American Wallace Simpson.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Well, at the same time, the Illuminati had set up one of their most daring social experiments at that point. But excuse me.
No problem.
But they did it on a small scale first. You see, the Illuminati never does anything on a big scale till they first do it on a smaller scale to see if they can predetermine all the moves and outcomes. If it's close enough or if it's right on the money, then they'll bring it to the bigger scale. And hence, that's why they created Nazi Germany. If you study the tenets and beliefs of Nazism, my goodness, people, can we say that this is steeped in occultism?
Yeah, Hitler was into the occult.
He was heavily into the occult. There was three major occult groups in Nazi Germany. That would have been the Thor Society, the Brill Society, and, of course, the Illuminati, who was working through the Masonic temples. Well, anyways, Hitler was given all his power and authority through the Illuminati, but the thing is, he got greedy. So he decided to cut a deal with King Edward VIII. Remember, Edward VIII abdicated the throne, it's believed, so he could marry Wallace Simpson. Well, that's the excuse. The truth of the matter is, I believe it was Prime Minister Baldwin at the time, and his cabinet did not trust the king whatsoever, because find out he was himself a fascist. He was, he himself even lauded praise about Hitler and the way he was running things. And he even, with Wallace Simpson, eventually met with Hitler and everything. But Baldwin was afraid that Edward VIII would betray the nation, and they had ample proof at the time. They really did. So what they did, they used Wallace Simpson as an excuse to force him to abdicate, because she was the Church of England does not recognize a divorcee, and if you're divorced, well, you cannot legally become the king or the queen of England. So they put him in a no-win situation to where they forced him to abdicate. Now, this is where Edward wanted his pound of flesh, because what had happened, Hitler was making a deal with Edward, and basically, to sum it up, he said, if you will just, Hitler was saying, if you will just publicly endorse us, when we take over England, we will put you not only back on the throne and kick your brother off, which was King George VI, the present Queen's dad, but they said that they would guarantee that Wallace Simpson would become the queen as she should have been. And, of course, this is what Edward wanted all along. He doted over Wallace Simpson. Anything she wanted was her. And if anyone said a slight against her, well, they were a marked target as far as Edward was concerned. So he agreed to it, but what had happened, the Illuminati found out, and they brought Hitler down very quickly.
So, now, Churchill was also in.
Excuse me?
Winston Churchill, he was also a member, from what I understand.
In his early days, yes. In his latter days, once he really found out the full scope of what they were doing, he spoke out against them vehemently.
So I'm just curious, because I know you were in, but and they taught you a lot of this stuff. How do you remember it all?
I've been doing this since I was 3.
I know.
This is all I've known all my life.
There's just so much information.
This was, the purpose of my existence as far as God had foreseen it.
Oh, I definitely agree there, sir. I mean,
I've been doing this for inside the Illuminati, outside exposing 54 years now.
And I think that you're probably reaching more people now than ever before. I think
it's because people have finally woken up. Remember, I've been saved now. I'm coming up on 34 years. And when I first started telling the people about all this New World Order, the Illuminati, the seven-part plan, everything, they thought I was a barking loon.
And now it's like more and more, sir. People are starting to really get it. But it's disappointing to me because they still go out and vote. And we still, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know you when this happened, but the day after the election was such a sad day for me because I go on Facebook, I go on Twitter, and people are so, talk about Lucifer controlling Earth. People were spouting out racial slurs. People were fighting with each other. People were I've never, ever seen a day where it was such anger and such vitriol.
Well, because if things were honest, Obama should never have won. But we can tell by the voters' fraud, the machines that were creating fraud, and a bunch of other things that he wasn't fairly elected. One of my funniest incidents I will ever remember, I'll take this to my grave, is the day this one guy received the voter registration packet and everything, but it wasn't for him. It was for his dog.
Wow.
Oh, no, it gets worse. His dog was dead for 3 years at that point.
There was an episode of The Simpsons, which is a very popular cartoon. I'm sure you heard of it before. And that actually happened. The vote was rigged from using dead people and animals. So I guess there's always reality. And it seems like Hollywood knows, and they kind of give us clues. Have you ever picked up on some of those too?
The Illuminati use Hollywood to get their plans through to their people.
It seems that way, like the symbolism.
No, it's a fact. Look at the movie Knowing. Have you ever seen that one?
What's it called? I'm sorry?
Knowing. Cage?
No, I've never seen it.
Okay, the whole story is based upon this one girl in the 1950s. There was a classroom, I think it was third graders or fifth graders. They were given an assignment that they were going to be putting these objects and other things inside a time capsule, and that 50 years later it would be opened up, and this was on the school property. Well, while this is going on, this one little girl in what looks like a possessed state of existence starts writing on the front and back page of a piece of paper, and it's a series of numbers. Well, we find out later that 50 years down the road, when the time capsule was opened up, Nicolas Cage discovers that all those numbers are actually the times and dates and latitude and longitudes of where major incidences are going to happen. We're talking disasters and things like that. Well, one day, he comes home late at night. He has that paper with him because he's been working on it, and he sits down in front of the television. He looks at the clock. It's 11:59 p.m. He clicks on the news, and it opens up by announcing that there's been a giant oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. And he looks at the clock. It's now midnight, exactly the day that the paper announced, when this disaster was going to happen. Now, I froze the DVD at that point because when you look down at the numbers, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. And sure enough, as always, the Illuminati marked their territory because if we look at the numbers he was looking at, the center ones were 666. Now once I saw that, I looked at the Illuminati playing cards, and sure enough, everything about the BP oil spill was going to happen. It was in the movie. It was in the playing cards. There was absolutely no doubt about it. I knew it was going to happen, and sure enough, a year later, the BP oil spill happened.
And I just want to real quick, everybody, it's a GodThinkProduction777.com because You broke down the Illuminati card game, and that's probably my favorite thing I've ever seen you do. Is you broke down the Illuminati card game and pretty much broke down every single card, and then based it off of Bible prophecy and based it off of things that have actually happened or are going to happen.
Well, yes, because let's face it, when it comes to prophecy, nothing's going to touch the Bible. There's no other holy text or holy writ that has prophecies, let alone the ones that the Bible has, that have happened exactly in order according to the way the Scripture puts them. I mean, they all happen in this order that they appear in the Bible, and there is no other text in existence that can do that.
No, that's what I tell people, that it's a book unlike any other. It really is. Just beyond. Again, you're talking about how, some of the symbolism that Lucifer has is beyond human comprehension. There's no way you can tell me that book was really written by just man. That's the Word of God.
I'm sorry, people. I can prove to you that was written outside and beyond anything humanity could have possibly come up with. The prophecies alone, just for the ones that involved the life, death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, when we sit down and just look at the statistical odds of that happening, the odds are so high, mankind as a being hasn't even been around long enough for that to have occurred even once.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Odds are that high.
Yeah, he was gonna. They pointed out where he was gonna be born. The lineage. Just bam, 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 bam. I actually have I want to call it a little cheat sheet that tells me all of the Jesus Christ prophecies in the Old Testament. I have all of them written down somewhere.
The Old Testament, there was 333 prophecies that deal with the coming Messiah. And I mean, my goodness, people, 333?
And they were spot on.
Exactly.
I actually want to talk about that in just a second. I have one final question about the hierarchy of the Illuminati. Okay, where, and this is bugging me, sir, this has been bugging me for a year. Where do the Catholic Church / the Vatican / Adolfo Nicholas, the Black Pope, where does this fit in? Because I know it fits in somewhere.
Adolfo Nicholas is not the Black Pope, first of all. Second of all, the Vatican was taken over by the Illuminati during the 1850s. Ever since that time, they've had one of their people at the Vatican always kept in the shadows. Now, that person is properly known to as the Black Pope, not because of his skin color or because of his robes. It's because he's always kept in the shadows. Few know of his existence in the Vatican. And every day, if the Illuminati have any orders for the Pope, they send them to that guy, and he gives them directly to the Pope.
So we don't even know who that is.
Nope.
All right, but okay. See, that's great. That's good to know. Because I mean, I don't want to sit here and disparage the Catholic people, and that's not what we do here. Obviously, there's you and I, you more so than I probably can poke holes in a lot of the Catholic what do you call it? The rituals, the paganism, and all. We can go through all that. It'll be a whole different show on that one. But so the Rothschilds are getting direct orders from Lucifer. That's what it sounds like to me. And then they distribute the knowledge.
There is, and I haven't been to the Rothschild mansion myself, but there is, according to all the stories and rumors you pick up in the Illuminati, there is rumored to be a huge table made out of oak in the Rothschild mansion. And every meal, there are 13 meals set at those 13 tables. At those 13 chairs, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
The 13th chair at the head of the table is where Lucifer himself is supposed to sit.
And
now, whether or not, I believe he has manifested himself there on occasion.
You mean in physical form?
He can still appear to be as an angel of light.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, you're talking about you can actually see the guy.
Yes.
That's trippy.
When you summon demons, that's what you're doing. You're seeing them.
And, yeah, and that's why I was asking you earlier about doing that. How you can actually, like, I've heard stories of situations where witches have done that and actually seen beings. Like, okay, let me ask you about. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
I was out there, of course. I mean, but they're not, what people think they are, that they all come with two horns, a pitchfork, and red pajamas. No. They come in different sizes, shapes, and forms. I mean, some are green, some are red, some are black, some, red, green, black. I've seen blue. Some don't take on a corporeal form. They're more almost like as if you're seeing a spirit shifting.
The shadow people.
Yeah. But you can also, once you've summoned them, if you know what you're doing, have them take on a human form.
And can't they possess things like objects too?
No, they can't possess objects, but what can be done, and this is why demonic possession is necessary nowadays, you can take an object, and if you know how to hex it properly, it becomes what's known as an anchor, or a spiritual anchor. You see, when demons were cast out of heaven, they lost most of their abilities, which is why whenever anyone normally sees them manifest, it looks like they're shifting or as if they can't hold their form. And the reason that is because they don't have the power to hold a physical form like they used to. But if, they've got a physical body they can possess, well, then they don't have to worry about that because now they're possessing a physical form. The only other way you can keep them, without having a physical body is a spiritual anchor. And that anchor is a hexed object. And so long as that object exists, the demon doesn't have to leave because he's tied to the existence of that object. Destroy the object, the demon has to leave.
Like crystals in witchcraft.
Well, if it's been hexed properly, yes.
Okay. So when people say they're seeing ghosts and things like that, that's a demon. That's more from what I understand because
it is a demon because they're simply taking on the form of that departed person's loved one.
Yes.
And doing that, it not only will it bring them into other areas of the occult, but it pulls them away from salvation.
God bless you, sir, because, oh my God, have I been trying to get this through some people's heads? Because
That's the exact purpose of it.
2 Corinthians states, absent from the bodies in the presence of God, right?
Yes.
When we die, we're gone. We don't come back. The only one that came back was Jesus. That's why he's so special. So, Lazarus.
All right, Jesus also called Moses and Elijah.
Yeah, but they're special.
Remember the Sermon on the Mount? No,
yeah.
It was the Mount of Transfiguration.
Yeah, but only Jesus can do that, is what I'm trying to say.
My point is, they can be brought back, but it has to be through divine authority.
Exactly. Now, would that kind of justify the stories of people saying that they've died and gone to heaven and come back?
No. I think because when we look at what happens to a lot of those people, and rather than, shall we say, becoming more godlike, they end up in the spiritual, New Age stuff.
Yeah, and that's very
and again,
stuff.
That covers the truth with a lie. And it's a good lie because it looks pleasant. It has a nice candy coating to it, It's appealing. So, this must be true. Horse manure.
So when we die, we don't come back.
When those events are happening, I'm actually convinced that these people who are going down this so-called tunnel of light, I think they're actually being put into a dimensional realm that's really just an illusion. I think if a person was to go all the way to the end of that, to the true end of it, they'd see what hell looked like.
So you think that if when we die, it's boom, we're right there in the presence of the Lord, just like without the speed of light.
The Bible makes it very, very clear in a number of instances that when the soul leaves the body, A, it doesn't come back from some type of mystic journey down a tunnel, and that B, it either ends up in hell or in heaven.
Now, what? But don't you get judged first? Am I wrong on that?
No. No. You have to understand. Hell is just a holding pattern. It's like, you're at a bus stop, but you're not at the main terminal. The main terminal being Judgment Day,
which is going to happen at the end of time.
After judgment, all the people who are judged guilty of God, they're thrown into the lake of fire, and eventually death and hell will be thrown into the lake of fire also, along with Satan.
So, and obviously the only way to get to heaven is, like, when you and I both know this, the only way to get to heaven when you die is through Christ, through His grace.
No. You have to get saved before you die.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to be saved in Christ. You have to be born again, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just making it clear for the listeners.
The Bible says that there is only one sin unto death. And the reason it is a particular sin is because it's the rejection of the Holy Spirit, the rejection of salvation. That's the one sin that will get you to hell. The others, they don't matter, because in God's eye, all sin has the same weight and judgment to it. There's nothing more or less. They're all the same weight and measure. But all of them can be easily forgiven if you just go to Christ and take His gift of salvation. If you reject it, it's that sin of rejection that causes you to end up in hell and eventually the lake of fire. That's why it's known as the sin unto death.
And I'm very happy that you said that ghosts and things and apparitions are actually demons, because I've felt this way about that for a long time, and I'm not going to say any names, sir, but there are people who I know of. Unfortunately, it's hard. It's hard to talk to some of these people because they just lost a loved one, and you really got to be really careful, because people are very sensitive. But
I get straight to the point.
Yeah.
I say, well, people say, well, he was a good man, and then I'll say, well, he probably ended up in heaven if he was.
Well, I mean more so the fact that this person I'm speaking of is now seeing visions of the person and is hearing them.
That's when I sit them down and I have a heart-to-heart talk to them. I'll say, listen, let's be honest. You've gone through a traumatic experience. You're in a state of shock. This could all simply be a subconscious manifestation of your missing them.
Or it could be a demon trying to trick them.
Well, I'll wait till they go in that direction. That's when I'll start, okay, well, time to take off the silk gloves. Let me tell you what's going on here now.
I may tell you something off air about that. I don't want to talk about it on the air because it's somebody's private life, but something I kind of want to run by you about this, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, back to the Illuminati. I'm glad we brought that up. So I want to actually go back. You said the Illuminati, 1700s, that's when they actually were established, but there's a comma here. I want to talk about Genesis 6 because everybody who studies this has seemingly, well, not everybody, but most of them have talked about Genesis 6. And not just that, but also the times after with Nimrod. And was Nimrod the first Freemason?
You've got to be kidding.
Technically, from what I understand.
The first genuine Freemasonic lodge was established in Aberdeen in Scotland in 1717. Now, the Freemasons have come up with a wonderful little story that they can trace, their origins all the way back to the building of Solomon's Temple and all that. Again, horse manure.
That's it, yeah. Okay.
That's a lie. I mean, let me explain something.
Sure.
When I wrote DVD for my series, that's called Magic, Mysticism, and Masonry, I used more than 100 Masonic books in my possession, including coded ones, which obviously I can read. I was in the Illuminati, and put together that 2 DVD set. It's almost 4 hours long, but the proof speaks for itself. We used dozens of different Masonic writers, and they categorically state not only Do they want nothing to do with Jesus Christ, and that his name means nothing to them, and that Masonry is not Christianity nor a substitute for it, and that as far as they see it, the Bible is only so much furniture. They themselves proclaim in their own writing they are worshiping Lucifer.
You're talking about Albert Pike and Morals and Dogma, right?
It's all documented, not just Pike. There's a lot more than just Pike. Albert Pike, Manly P. Hall, and Albert Mackey are considered to be three of the greatest Masonic expositors in history. But they weren't the only ones. As I said, I used dozens of different Masonic writers, hundreds of their own books. And I can prove categorically everything I just stated. They are not a Christian organization nor a substitute for it. They themselves openly admit that they are worshiping Lucifer.
So what was the significance of, now I know the story of Nimrod was, the Tower of Babel and all that. Nimrod was an actual, the scripture kind of confuses me on this one. He was an actual person.
Yes, he was.
He was, not just a god, okay. Or, you know what I mean.
God.
You know what I mean, they worship, I don't even know, a deity, I guess you could say.
No, deity is just another way of saying a god.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to say the word God because, I believe in the God.
Considered a hero among the people.
There you go. Now, the Genesis 6 thing, a lot of conspirazoids have said that this actually is proof of aliens coming down. They're saying that...
they themselves are smoking something from an alien planet.
That's what it sounds like to me, sir.
I was in the Illuminati.
Yes, sir.
Shortly before 1938, it was early as the 1930, but it really kicked into its high gear, shall we say, starting in 1938. The Illuminati feared one thing, greater than anything in their entire history, and they were afraid that it would happen. Now, in order to prepare and to cover up this event, they came up with, they came up with this plan. They've been working on it for 75 years, but as I'm living and breathing, they can pull this off now. They themselves, and I've got the physical evidence to prove this, are the ones responsible for creating the so-called UFO flying vehicles, and they themselves are the ones who's also come up with the so-called little gray aliens. This is another Illuminati smokescreen. It's one of the most elaborate lies and deceptions I have ever seen in my entire days. They've spent literally billions upon hundreds of billions of dollars to create this lie so that people would be conditioned to believe that there are such things as aliens and UFOs. And the truth of the matter is we can't even prove if there's life in outer space, let alone if there's an advanced tech, an ancient civilization far, far off in another galaxy. No, this was all purposely done to cover up something that they fear will happen, and that is the rapture.
Well, that I'm going to get into. I definitely want to get into that here in just a second. And I'm assuming you talk about this on Aliens, Fallen Angels, or Antichrist Parts 1 and 2. That's what it's all about.
When I put together DVDs 9 and 10, Part 1, Part 2, with this Aliens, Fallen Angels, or Antichrist, took me 3 months to write it. It is 3 discs, 7 hours, more than 750 photograph, diagram, charts, illustration, the original stuff from Nazi Germany that's in my possession. I put it on those DVDs to prove to everyone what is going on. And when I first unveiled this information at a prophecy summit that was put on by Prophecy in the News last year, I had a number first of all, I had a number of the people coming from speakers who was espousing, as you said, the aliens and all this. I had them and almost every other speaker at that summit come up to me and ask me, where did I ever get those photos from? Because, among other things, they will prove these cannot be advanced vehicles from an ancient civilization. No. These will categorically prove these are man-made vehicles.
Now, and by the way, people, again, I'm going to plug it again. It's a GodThinkProduction777.com. It's all there. But now, okay, I'm trying to link this here because Genesis 6 talks about, the fallen. It's basically about fallen angels.
Giants?
I'm sorry?
It's about giants.
Well, yes, but
it's not about just fallen angels. That's just part of the story. We find out that fallen angels, what we now call demons, mated with female human beings and created a hybrid race known as giants.
Yes. Yeah, the daughters of man.
And we find out in Genesis 6:4, it says, there were giants on the earth in those days, and it was talking about the days of Noah. And then it adds 4 more words, and also after that.
Yeah, they survived.
It means also, after the flood of Noah, there were also giants. What people don't realize is that this was the first genetic experiment in history in which Satan messed around with the genetic code and interbreeded a superior being with an inferior one and created an offspring, a hybrid. It's a hybrid race. And because it had part of the lineage of angelic beings now recognized as demons, well, these were huge creatures, physically, incredible. And we're talking some of them had 6 toes, 6 fingers, a double row of teeth. Biblically speaking, we know some of them stood between 36 to 40 feet in height.
Like Goliath.
Goliath was on the small end. He was about 9.5 feet tall.
Now, these giants...
when we look at just, one that would have been close to the medium level, that would have been Og, the king of Bashan. He stood somewhere around 15 feet tall.
Do the Illuminati think that they are of the bloodline of these giants? Because that's one of the big ones also that's going around.
I can't answer that right now.
Okay, no problem. I was just curious about that.
I'll explain something to you after the show.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay, no problem. All right, now, I wanted to ask you about a story that I had read, and see if maybe you were given any knowledge of this. I want to go back to Crowley and the UFO connection. There's a story
I know the story.
All right.
Communication with that little gray alien, blah, 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 blah. Right?
Well, no, not that one. That one, okay, that one is I'm actually glad you brought that up. That's not the one I was referring to. There's another one where apparently Crowley and his group of Luciferian, whatever they were, went out to Roswell and opened a portal. This is trippy. This is very trippy stuff. This story says that he went out there, opened a portal. I think it was in 1933 or 43. I don't remember the year. Sorry about that. And he let these things into our world.
I know. I heard the story also.
What is the real story, if there is one?
Bunk. It's bunk. That's it. There's no truth to it.
Okay, so the gray aliens, are they fallen angels?
No. They're genetic creations.
You mean...
They're man-made.
So, I mean, are they robots or are they actual beings? I'm kind of trying to figure...
They're beings.
But, I mean, are they...
Wait. I saw the early, some of the early labs in which the Illuminati scientists were already resequencing the double helix code back in the 70s. I saw one of the laboratories under the Fifth Army General Hospital in Stuttgart, Germany, just down the road from where the Illuminati first began. Now,
very scary.
They finally had the code broken to where they can make little gray aliens by the mid-'80s. Now think about this for a second. before the mid-'80s, well, we had all types of alien beings. We had tall ones, short ones, black ones, green ones, red ones, blue ones. Some with hair, some without hair, some with mouth, some with teeth, some with small noses, small mouth, small ears. I mean, my goodness, we had more aliens than what we knew what to do with.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, the mid-'80s hit. We've only had one type of alien since, and that's the 4.5 foot tall gray alien. Now, let's apply some common sense. Are you trying to tell me now that all those ancient civilizations decided, oh, well, we're tied with it, so let's all just pack up and leave, and they just gave it over to the Greys?
It's very strange.
That makes sense.
Right?
No. What had happened was at that point, as I said, the Illuminati scientists finally made and cracked the DNA code, the double helix code. And ever since then, that's the only type of alien we've been seeing.
So you're telling me they can create these beings from scratch?
Wait a second. Mm-hmm. Now, American scientists and other scientists around the world outside of the Illuminati, they weren't even close to doing that. It was only in the now the Illuminati, as I said, they've been working on that since the 70s and broken in the mid-'80s. It was only in the 90s that other scientists around the world said, and in America, well, we're going to map the entire human genome, and we're going to have every little snippet about the DNA code broken. They didn't even break it until, after the year 2000.
Wow, really?
Yes. Well, it was first attempted in the early 90s, as I recall, and I think they finally broke it shortly after the year 2000. But the Illuminati scientists were well ahead of the game. They were already experimenting on that 25 years before any other scientists had broken it. It was the Illuminati scientists that had secretly broken it, and they can mass produce these little gray aliens.
So they can, okay, this is trippy. They can...
No. This is simple genetics. And mind you, it's out of control. These people are playing God now because they're now doing it with other species, but they're crossing species and creating creatures that, by God's will, are not supposed to exist.
Now, obviously, they can't create spirits. So I'm assuming these are just vessels for demons.
No, that's a bad assumption. They're not demonically possessed.
So. Okay, so you're telling me that the Illuminati is able to create the Greys, they can create life from scratch?
We've been able to, by what you're saying, create life from scratch by simply taking the egg and the sperm and just introducing them together.
But I mean, what? So you're telling me these Greys have a consciousness? They actually are. I mean, it's hard for me to grasp this.
Everything that has life comes from one source, and that's Adam and Eve. It's something that's been passed down since the first day of creation. Life has always been passed down because of Adam and Eve.
So okay,
and even if you do it in a test tube, so long as the genetic material still comes from human beings, it still is life. Ergo, it comes with a spirit.
But obviously, it's born into sin, just like everybody else.
Right. Which brings up an interesting point, which is why Christ had to be born of a virgin.
Yeah, the only one.
And the reason is because Adam and anyone else would be born with original sin. Now, Christ had to be born in a state of sinless perfection, which is why he was born without a father, so that through the father's side, the seed of sin did not pass to Christ. The lineage of the mother, I should say it's through the mother you get the lineage. It's through the father that you get supposedly the seed of sin.
I've said that to so many people, sir. I like being validated in this.
I know my theology. You know?
No, I know you do. See, that's the thing.
I've been a born-again Christian for 34 years. I've read my Bible a dozen times, easy from cover to cover. I mean, I remember what it says.
I mean, I'm still under the learning tree, so to speak. But it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. No, what I wanted to say was, these things are living creatures. That the Illuminati has created these species. Why haven't any of them revolted? I mean, if they have free will and thought, why haven't any of these Greys escaped the web? I mean, because if they're just like us, except for they're a different creature, I mean, they have intellect, obviously.
There's only so many of them. There's not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these things, no. There's only a couple. There's only, I'd say, maybe 5,000 total. And that's all they need.
That's still pretty. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's.
No, it's not. It's easy just to keep 5,000 people in underground facilities.
So you're telling me they're not afraid that one day they're going to revolt, and they're not afraid of that?
Of course not. They're under the complete control.
And are they under control through mind control tactics like the MK Ultra, or are they under control through demonic,
MK Ultra is overblown. It's nowhere near as effective or efficient as some people claim it is. It isn't. The Illuminati have much better methodologies than that.
I actually would like to bring you back in the future. We don't have time to get into that, but that is something I would like to really get into because
I can show you one of the methodologies I was taught in the Illuminati when it comes to brainwashing, mind control, or conditioning. What I've done, when you look at hardcore brainwashing, you need two things. You need time and repetition. Without those two things, it's not going to work.
You mean it's like riding a bike?
No, it's a lot different than that.
Okay.
But what I've done is to reverse the principle. I've cut down the time and boosted the repetition. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I've done that was so that during live presentations, excuse me, I can show you in 1 minute or under how fast I can control you. I can get you to say whatever I want you to say.
Even me, like a born-again Christian?
It doesn't matter who you are.
But wouldn't the Lord protect me from that?
The way I do it is reversing the process of brainwashing. That takes a while. I'm doing this in a very quick, rapid way, and it will only work once or twice, and that's it. But I do it to prove the point of how sophisticated the Illuminati's techniques are when it comes to brainwashing, programming, or conditioning.
And this knowledge has obviously been hidden from everybody. I mean, you have to obviously, Masons don't know this. You have to be super high up to learn these techniques.
It's not even the Masons who do that.
Well, I know, but I'm using that as an example.
That's not Masonic territory. That's purely in the Illuminati.
That's purely Luciferian?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Think about this. Who's the first person who was conditioning another person?
Are you talking about the serpent?
Yes.
Yep.
He was already trying to condition Eve when he was questioning God. He said, "Did God really say?" Already he was questioning the word of God right there.
Well, it's funny about that story because the serpent tried to convince. See, everybody knows the story, but they really don't pay attention to the story. You and I have. I know you and I have because what people forget is that the serpent told Eve that if she eats the fruit, she'll become God. That was the whole trick. It wasn't just disobey. He was trying to tell her that if you do this, you can become God. And
he said you can become as God.
Yes, I'm sorry, as God. But how many quote-unquote religions claim that you can achieve this. The New Agers, Scientology, Mormonism, all these other religions seem to follow suit. So I'm looking at this like, it can't just be a coincidence, can it?
Same old lie, just a different package and a different time. That's all.
That's it. Yeah, that's
same old lie.
Now, I want to finish up with the Greys, and well, not with the Greys, with just the whole alien thing. Just a couple quick questions on the UFO situation. Number one, where does this reptilian thing come from? This nonsense, if I call it.
Demons. There's no such thing as these reptilian races, and as I stated before, they can't even prove life exists in outer space. Yet, these people try to tell me, oh, well, they come from a higher plane of existence or a different dimension or they're time travelers. You know, I happen to have been studying. Now, this is a strange hobby, I know, but I happen to have been studying quantum physics and quantum mechanics since, what, 30, almost 40 years now. It's just a side hobby.
That's okay.
I love the theories. I love, extrapolating on all of it. But you know what? It's called a theory because there's no evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great mental exercise, but guess what? Communism looked great on the blackboard also. But practicality, oh my goodness, what a doomed thing that was.
So these images of these politicians with the reptilian eyes, that's all demonic possession.
No, a lot of it is just a combination of light and the photography. And I don't mean purposeful photography, accidental.
Okay. So you basically are telling me that the reptilian eye thing is just not, that's just bad lighting.
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. Let's say, they say that Queen Elizabeth, David Icke and others of like ilk say Queen Elizabeth is an alien, is a reptilian. George Bush is one. I believe it in Obama's case.
Okay.
Okay, people, you claim that. Well, this is easily proven one way or the other. Let's just get a genetic sample and put it under a microscope.
Well, that's easier said than done. I don't think the Queen's going to give you some of her hair if you ask her for it, but who knows?
Even if you just shake her hand, all you have to do, shaking the hands, there's sweat or some type of surface thing you can actually experiment with. Or, as it says, you don't even have to do her. Go to any of the other people they claim.
So, okay, because I was told.
Wait, and just take a sample and put it under the microscope. I could even do it and tell you right now, I have enough of a medical background that I can tell you if that's human DNA or not. It's not hard. What is hard is to believe any of this nonsense. I spent an hour and a half today with a group of people that was trying to convince me of the same thing we're talking about right now, including one of them claimed that he was talking to Jesus Christ directly on the 11th dimension. On the 12th. God exists on the 12th. And that he was going to prove to me certain things about aliens, a body, their machines, but before he does, he has to get permission from them first.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, the densities and, brother.
I can't even begin to tell you how, beyond the point of frustrated, I had become.
Oh, I know.
I'm not even going to go there. I just can't believe.
It's such deception.
Singer's greatest source of all truth in all of recorded history, found in the glorious 66 books that make up the Bible. And people don't even want to examine the truth of these things. Oh, no, tickle my ear. Tell me about aliens. Tell me about UFOs. They don't realize that they've been conditioned to believe that. And when I see such stupid shows as that Ancient Aliens on TV,
oh, yeah, I
want to scream. I had my research assistant, Nathaniel Earl, sit down once. I said, I want you to count how many times you're going to hear if, and, but, could be, should be, maybe, might be, we think, and all this on that show. In one episode, he counted, I think it was a little bit over 100 incidences.
Yeah, it's
100.
And we talked about the movies. I mean, everything coming out now is aliens, zombies, and vampires.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
And now, and the blood drinking is legit, though. Like, that's the funny thing. You know, you take something that's fact, like the blood drinking, right? And they make it into this fantasy of, you know, oh, these vampires are in love, and it's very deceptive stuff.
Of course. When you take vampires and werewolf and make them into hunky, sexy, attractive people, and, you know, oh, my goodness, we want to have a love fest here. Well, of course, it's going to allure to the young people because they've got more hormones raging than I know what to do with.
Yeah, that's for
you
sure.
Know? I mean, it's not as if. I mean, okay, this will have to be for another show, but are there vampires and werewolves? Yes. Are they the Hollywood story? No.
Wait, so werewolves exist?
That's a whole different ball game. But do you know where the first story of werewolves come from?
I have no clue. Actually, I was going to ask you that. I don't know if if you can fill me in, that'd be great. I mean, that's.
Let me tell you, Dan.
Sure.
It's in the Bible.
Really?
Yeah, I know. That's what everyone says. Really. God struck Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, down with lycanthropy. So he crawled on all four. His body grew great massive hair, claws, and everything.
So Nebuchadnezzar was a werewolf.
Well, we call it lycanthropy. He didn't change because of the full moon. No, that's Hollywood.
That's Hollywood, yeah.
Was he? Did he eat grass and go out there with the animals and all that? Yes, that's what the Bible states.
And obviously, real vampires aren't allergic to garlic and all that nonsense.
Or things like that. No, that's Hollywood.
It seems like that's Satan's little trick. He takes reality and like the whole, you know. He takes reality and then, like, twists it. It's like, you know, we talked about David Icke. You see his presentations. He talks about all this symbolism, and we're following him. And then, to quote another, I guess you can call it conspiracy researcher, he takes a dump in the punch bowl. And then...
No. That guy has no clue.
He's a New Ager also.
When it comes to the conspiracy. No, he's one of those people who will come up and tickle your ear and say, well, here's a photo of a reptilian, or here's a photo of that, or, you know, excuse me, why don't we, instead of going by a trick of the camera, why don't we just validate your claim?
He hasn't actually even produced a photo, like a real one, I mean.
I have literally looked at well more than 100,000 pieces of evidence, so-called evidence. It's not even compelling, let alone convincing.
Yeah, it all sounds like it's. I've always said that the whole reptilian connection has to do with the serpent in the garden, and I've always been of the opinion that, I mean, you're saying that this is not true, but that if you're demonically possessed, you have reptilian eyes. You're saying no, that's not the case. No. You see, when a person becomes possessed. Now, whether or not it's because of spiritual discernment, I can't be certain, but I can always tell you when I'm looking at someone like that, I always see a set of eyes behind the physical set of eyes. That's trippy. So you see two sets of eyes? Yeah, I see one below the surface. It's like seeing, as I said, another set. That's extremely creepy. You know what I mean? For somebody who's not used to it. I didn't say mine was a fun-filled life, but that's exactly how it looks like to me. Yeah, wow. Okay. All right. Before we get out of here, I appreciate your time. There's just a couple more things that I want to ask you. One, first of all, about the UFO deception. I've looked into Project Bluebeam, the plot that they're going to create a false rapture and a false Christ through holograms. I was kind of just wondering, what do you know about it? Is it legit? I mean, we know the technology is possible. We know it's very hard to doubt they can't do it.
I'm aware that they can do things with hologram that most people aren't aware of. Now, I'm convinced that they'll be able to create so-called miracles with some of these holographic events through the false prophet to make it look like he has these divine powers. That's a very strong likelihood. But they cannot create a false rapture with it. What they can do is cover up the rapture with a false alien visitation.
You mean like the alleged Christ will appear out of a spaceship type story they're talking about?
No. What's going to happen? And as I said, this is part of a 75-year-old plan, and they're going to get away with it. I want you to think the rapture hits. Well, 100, maybe 200 million people will suddenly vanish off the face of the earth. Babies in hospital nurseries will suddenly vanish. The old elderly people in old people's home will suddenly vanish. I mean, how are we going to explain all these inexplicable events? Well, what if a day, maybe a week or two down the road, there's a worldwide broadcast, and it says NASA scientists have just spotted motherships headed towards the Earth.
Oh, that's going to be scary that day.
And
for a lot of people.
And what if, a week, maybe a couple of days, let's say a week later, they tell us that these motherships are now surrounding the Earth. Well, with CGI, we can make that very convincing, but that's still not going to be enough evidence to prove to the normal person. Oh, it looks good on the TV, but let's cover it up. Let's make sure that those spaceships, those alien UFOs, start landing on the face of the Earth. Not motherships, but those UFOs that they first started creating back in the 1830s.
And they still got them. They're still using them.
They start landing on capitals or certain countries throughout the world. And you see these little gray aliens walk out, and they tell you, all those people that just vanished, we took them up to our motherships because they need re-educating. You people are the truly enlightened ones who will help us to guide and steer mankind into the golden age of humanity.
And aren't they also going to say that Christ was actually one of us? And
Wait, hold on.
All right.
Now, the reason people are going to fall for it is because it plays perfectly upon the human ego. You are the truly enlightened ones. You are going to help us, a superior race, help to steer mankind into the golden age of humanity. It falls perfectly upon the human ego. That's why they're going to fall for it.
You know, it's creepy you say that because the infamous video online of Alex Collier, that's all, and I know you know who that is, all he talks about is how he got a visit from the Pleiadians, and they told him that, oh, well, we're royalty to them.
Oh, please, don't get me going there. Please don't.
All right, I won't.
We've only got a couple minutes left as it is. I want to go off on a happy note here.
Yeah, no, I do want to go off on a happy note. Is it okay if we go just a couple minutes extra? Is that okay with you?
Well, go ahead.
I just have two more questions about the whole. Okay, what advice would you give to Christians or anybody listening to this, as far as being able to see through the lies and the deception of this Project Bluebeam? I mean, whether it be the UFOs or whether it actually be an image of Christ in the skies, whatever they're going to create.
Tell them you're from Missouri and show me.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. I mean, for the Christians, you should know better. Read the Bible, for goodness sake.
Agreed.
Don't, go to church, stand around and get your, little fixes every Sunday so you can live like the devil for the next 6 days. Don't go there and be pew warmers. Don't stand in your little Christian comfort zones and say, don't confuse me with the facts. No, read your Bibles. And for those who aren't saved, my goodness, read the Bible. It'll show you how to get saved so you can finally figure out the truth of what's going on.
No, yeah, definitely. That's everybody's got to find their path, is the way I see it. And there's only one path. Now, hello?
I was hearing something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's probably my phone. I apologize for that. No, that's what I'm saying. My phone's weird like that sometimes. What I was going to ask you was, okay, do you think it's... I have two more questions, and then we're out of here. First question.
Questions ago.
I'm sorry. I know I keep saying that. No, this is really two more questions. Number one, it's the short question, easy question. Do you think these events will happen in the next 30 to 40 years?
What?
The end times, basically.
Oh, I'm convinced. It will happen in our life.
So yeah, I have this. Have you ever like walked outside your house and just kind of sensed that there's something wrong with the world?
Yes.
I've never felt that way until now.
No, I've sensed that, and sometimes I've just walked back in, and I wouldn't step out for the rest of the day. I was just too tired of having to step out there and say to myself, oh, my goodness, just how bad is it going to be this time?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. And all right, last question, sir, and again, thank you for everything and your time. This you can take as much time as you want for this. What is the plan? What is the final goal? I mean, we talk about one world government, one world religion, all that stuff. What is the actual plan? You know, is it to lower the population, or is it everything we're talking about right now?
No, that's only part of it. You want to know the ultimate final plan. Look at Revelation chapter 17, 18, and especially Revelation chapter 13. Also check into the 11th and 12th chapter of the book of Daniel. It's going to be a one-world government, under a one-world religion, under a one-world financial system, under a one-world global dictator, under the new world order.
Do we have any clue who that dictator will be? I mean, I don't think it's going to be the Rothschilds.
We're not supposed to know.
Well, yeah, that's true, because we're supposed to... Yeah, you're right. I was just curious. No, and, yeah, but they're going to decrease the population. I mean, we talked about the FEMA camps and everything. That's going to happen. I mean, there's no avoiding this.
It's going to happen. It is happening. I have already got, I don't know how many photos of different concentration camps around America. I mean, we're talking just about every state you could come up with. And these aren't, call them what they want. Oh, these are, let's call them sweet things. Oh, FEMA camps. No. Excuse me. I've got the photos from the so-called FEMA camp at Fort Dixon, New Jersey. The sign clearly points out prisoner of war camp, POW.
Wow. Just like Vietnam.
Exactly. These aren't, deterrent center. Oh, that's a nice political term. Or, let's make it sound like it's a federal government thing. FEMA camp. No. Let's call for what it is. The sign reads POW camps. I've got the bidder's contracts in my possession where it clearly points out, and it says prisoner of war camp. I've got letters from senators where they clearly point out what they are, that they're operational and everything else.
Now, is that where they're going to put the Christians? I mean, is that kind of what they're going to do? Or I thought they were going to kill the Christians, is what I understand.
Well, they're going to. We checked Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. You find out that anyone who was a Christian in those days and proclaims it will be beheaded.
But if you don't proclaim it, you're really damned.
Oh, that's exactly what the Bible states. It clearly points out anyone who takes the mark and any of the number of the beast is on a one-way ticket to the lake of fire. And
that's what I want to hammer home, sir, is that because a lot of people are like, well, we have our guns and the whole. I don't want to talk about the guns thing. We'll talk about that in the. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Please. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Thing reality here. We're going to take our guns, go into the mountains, and do the survivalist thing. And we're going to get into an okie-dokie corral shootout with the United States government. I've got news for you people. Let's bring it to reality. You've got the pop guns. They've got the big toys. You annoy them, they're going to do a Ruby Ridge on you, a Branch Davidian, and if they're not in the mood, they'll just drop a Scud missile on top of your bunker.
That's what I've been saying. You can't fight back with heavy arms.
That's reality.
You have to fight back with spirituality. That's it.
It is a spiritual battle being fought on a physical plane of existence.
Yeah, and I actually would like to talk about that in the future. All right, well, sir, I thank you very much for your time, Mr. Doc Marquis. Now, I already plugged this several times. It's a God Thing Production, 777.com. The floor is yours if you want to give like a hard sell or anything you want to add to, to let the listeners find out more about you and your DVDs and just the whole conspiracy and all the information you have to give.
My website, it's www. Now, this is all one long word, lowercase, no apostrophes. It's www.itsagodthingproductions777.com. That's It's a God Thing Productions 777.com.
Yes, and what I love about the DVDs, so everybody knows, is and I was very impressed because I've seen these DVDs like this in the past. Mr. Marquis is, is it Marquis or Marquis?
Marquis.
Marquis. So I did it right. The DVDs are very professionally done. You're going to get box art. You're going to get chapters. It's not like you're getting a little flimsy plastic case. You're getting a full. It's as if you went and bought a professional. It's very professionally done. It's like you bought one right at a store. So I like to put that over because you're the only person I know of who puts out DVDs like this, with good production values. And you also have in the DVDs, actual diagrams and photos, and it's just a whole presentation.
I put in the evidence, and we make sure it is that type of quality because we're representing God in a sense when we do this, and as far as I see it, God deserves only and only the best.
Yes, I agree.
We're going to make this a quality production with the quality material, with the packages and everything you would expect, as if, as you said, you walked down to a movie store and bought a new DVD.
It's very beautifully done. All right. Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure. It's a big pleasure to have you on. I've learned so much. I don't even know what. My brain is exploding right now. I would really love to have you on in the future to talk more about, because we didn't get, there's so much stuff. There's so much little intricacies we didn't even get to.
True, and I will happily do it. You just let me know when and where, kind sir.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you after a while.